So the truth about grief, it's not 5 stages. And if you've heard about the 5 stages of grief, maybe you're wondering, what stage am I at? I get that. I had that question too. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the 5 stages of grief. I'm going to break them down. And then you can decide, how relevant are these 5 stages of grief to what I'm going through? Welcome to another episode of the Seniors Grief Circle. I'm Karen, and I'm so glad that you're here. Before I dive into this video, I'm going to ask you for a small favor. If you could hit that subscribe button, because I'm brand new, it would definitely help me grow my channel. And hit that like button if you like this video. And please share it with someone who might be struggling with their grief. I'm also the founder of the Seniors Grief Circle. It's an online membership-based community to help you navigate your grief. And I'm giving you the online resources I wish I had access to when my father passed away, especially when I couldn't sleep, like at 2 a.m. I've got guided meditations, affirmations, tips to help you journal your thoughts, recommended books, and a whole bunch of good stuff. So if this sounds interesting, go on over to seniorsgriefcircle.com. Check it out. And if you like what you see, sign up and become a member. There's no long-term commitments. And it could just be the very resources that help you in the middle of the night. So, let's get into this video. The 5 stages of grief. I saw them everywhere after my dad died. I saw them all over social media. And then I started doing some digging because I wanted to understand them. I wanted to figure out, what stage was I at? Was my grief normal? Was I missing out on something? Was I not healing correctly? I had a lot of questions. So I did some digging on these 5 stages of grief. And I learned that they originated back in 1969. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross coined the term. And I looked at this and I thought, it's interesting. And I saw a lot of social media posts debunking them, that they don't work. Then I saw other people advocating for them. I was really confused. So I thought, let me learn about the 5 stages of grief. So Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she came up with the term. She was working with terminally ill patients, about 200 of them. She had a small sample size, and based purely on her observations and qualitative data, she came up with the 5 stages. I thought that was interesting. And then I looked a little closer, and I realized there was really no empirical research behind what she had done. But this model had taken off wildly since 1969, and it was being used by practitioners everywhere. So I thought, okay, let's try and understand what these 5 stages are. So let's do that. So the first stage is denial. Denying that your loss ever happened. We can just refuse to accept the reality. It's hard. It can send us into a state of shock. And we can even be numb with the news of losing someone. Denial is just refusing to accept what's happened because it's so difficult. It's so unbelievable. It's so incredulous. But we just can't accept it. So we're in denial. The second stage is anger. And anger is a very valid emotion when you're grieving. You could be just super angry that your loved one has passed. You could be angry at the circumstances around how they passed, or family members, or caregivers, or hospital administration. We might be looking to place blame on someone or something. We might be angry at the universe for taking our loved one. Or we could even be angry at ourselves for not doing something that we think we should have done. So anger is super complicated. It's super deep. And it's a very common feeling to have right after you lose someone. There's a part of anger that I call righteous anger. You do have a right to be angry, and it's completely normal to feel that way. The third stage is what I call bargaining, or what they call bargaining. And bargaining is really having these conversations with yourself about what you could have done differently. Maybe I should have done something. Maybe I could have done this to save my loved one. If I had done this, they wouldn't have died. If I would have, if I could have, if I should have, what could I have done differently? So we have these conversations, mostly in our head, and sometimes with other people, about how we could have prevented our loved one from dying. And we have these conversations going back and forth, trying to renegotiate something that's already happened, and it can't be done. But we do certainly try, and we go back and forth a lot, often blaming ourselves. And the fourth stage is depression. Grief can often manifest in depression, sometimes mild depression, or moderate depression, or even severe depression. Because once you realize that you've lost your loved one, and that loss hits you hard, there's a lot of sadness, a lot of really deep sadness in many cases. And it's deep, and you feel lonely. You feel isolated. You could feel empty, super empty. You could even feel hopeless about moving forward. So depression is super real. And it's more common than you think when you lose someone. And the fifth stage is acceptance. Acceptance is a time when your emotions settle down, when they become a little more stable, when you can think a little bit more clearly, and you see that your loss is in the past, and you're in the present moment, realizing that you can't change what's happened. So the final stage is acceptance. So the 5 stages of grief, they're also called the DABDA model: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And that's been the commonly used model all these years. I've seen variations of it modified to 7 stages and even more. But the point is, this is a model, and not all grief can be processed according to a prescribed model. So as I sat with these stages on my own grief journey, I was looking at the usefulness of them. And I'm looking at how they were created based purely on qualitative data, with not a lot of rigor behind it, but it became the accepted practice to look at grief and to help patients. So I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe you're at stage 5 today. You've accepted what's happened. What if you're triggered by your grief tomorrow and you're angry all day? Or you're angry and you wallow in that anger for a week or a month? You wouldn't be moving according to those 5 stages, would you? Because that's the thing about grief. It's not linear. You don't move from stage to stage and get through it. The only way to get through grief is to be with it. Grief is circular. It's messy. It's all over the place. And I don't really believe any prescribed model would give it justice. Where I find value in the model, in the 5 stages of grief, is it helped me articulate a lot of the emotions I was feeling, and a lot of thoughts that I had. And it's good to see that I'm not alone in what I was going through. So if you've had that question, what stage am I at in the 5 stages of grief? I want you to know you don't need to be at any specific stage. Your grief is completely normal. There's nothing wrong with you. Nothing at all. Don't believe everything you read on social media. I've done a little bit of digging for you to be completely comfortable with getting to know your grief. We do not need to fit into any prescribed model. And quite frankly, we can't, because we're human. We're human beings. And every single one of us is a unique human being who will have a very unique grief experience. So how can that fit into any model, I ask? So if your grief is feeling messy, and it's definitely not linear, know that you don't have to adhere to anybody's schedule or work through these stages. What you can do, the best things that you can do, is really to honor your emotions for what they are. When they bubble up, sit with them. Talk about them. Process them in a healthy way. And if you'd like some help with that, feel free to reach out to me anytime. And the link to do that is in the description box. You have to really take good care of yourself. Prioritize yourself. Eat well. Sleep well. Get some fresh air. Get some exercise. Talk about your grief. I say that quite often. Talk with a good friend. Talk with a family member. Or you can talk to me. I'll gladly listen anytime. We can talk about anything. You can also do something every day to honor your loved one. Create a ritual. Something small, something little that can help ease your grief. Because grief is such a thing. You might feel really good after a certain period of time, but it can hit you smack in the face a few months later, or even a year later, or years later. There are definitely no 5 stages to grief. Your grief is deep. Your grief is you. And it's yours. But do know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And nothing wrong with how you're moving through it. You're going to move through it according to your schedule, according to your timeline, and no one else's. So I hope this video helped you. If you have any other questions about the 5 stages of grief, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this video to be helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel and share this video with somebody that has a few questions about their grief journey. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.